Well, I think Oregon is the most complete team in the Pac-12. Do they have any weaknesses? Kinda. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So if you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you. Wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Lots to get to on the show today. As always, individual standouts coming later in the show. But yesterday I talked about why I think Oregon really showed themselves to be a Pac-12 and college football playoff contender on Saturday against Washington State. And that's that they're a very complete football team. They run the ball well. They throw the ball well. They have great running backs. They have great receivers. They have great tight ends. They have a good offensive line. They get pressure on quarterbacks. They have good linebackers. They have good DBs. The defensive numbers are good across the board. Everything really does look to be on the table for the Ducks from a Pac-12 and college football playoff standpoint, from a scheduling point of view and a team point of view. It's all there in front of the Ducks. They just have to go out and execute. But got me thinking, got some of you thinking as well. So we dive into the mailbag to start today's show. And if you want to be a part of it, YouTube comments or Twitter, hit me up at smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks, DMs and mentions wide open. If you want priority mailbag access and to become a Locked On Ducks insider, go join the Locked On Ducks subtext community for breaking news, inside thoughts, a chance to talk with me one-on-one, and as I mentioned, priority mailbag. This question came in from Blazer Duck, a regular question asker who always sends in a flurry like every couple of weeks. It's like 4 or 5 at a time. I love it. Spencer, what would you say are the top 3 weaknesses for the Ducks? Would you say it's penalties, run blocking, secondary, lack of creating turnovers, tackling? How would you rank them? I would rank them as follows. Number 1, the penalties. The penalties did not cost Oregon the Texas Tech game they easily could have. The penalties did not cost Oregon the Washington game. I think the penalties were actually pretty good in that one. There were several issues on Saturday. It wasn't abundant. It was only 45 penalty yards, but it was 7 penalties. So there were a lot of kind of small infractions here and there. You know, you had an ineligible man downfield. Johnny Cornelius just had a rough day with the penalties. Still great blocking. He's a beast. I think he's one of the top 40 in the country on PFF. He's been an awesome transfer portal addition to replace Big Sala, who's in the NFL. But the penalties have been an issue. Took a touchdown off the board early with a holding penalty. And, there have been some procedural moments that haven't been perfect along the offensive line. I don't mean to pick on the offensive line. I think the penalties have been pretty pronounced throughout the entire team this season. I think defensively they've come down considerably from what we saw against Texas Tech, where you had several pass interference calls. You had a couple roughing the passer penalties, where you had, a late hit. Those sorts of things have gotten better offensively. I think that's still kind of the biggest thing that stands out. Is the only thing that can hold Oregon's offense back is Oregon committing penalties. That's it. No one else has consistently stopped the Ducks this year. Oregon's averaging well over 500 yards of offense per game. They've put up at least 33 in every conference game, and their lowest total, which was 33, came on the road in a hostile environment against a top 10 team and had a couple of red zone miscues. So I think offensively, the only thing that stops the Ducks is when there's a false start or when there's a hold or an ineligible man downfield, which negated a heck of a play from Terrence Ferguson, by the way. Like, that dude just doesn't go down. He continues to solidify my belief that he's probably gone after the season off to the NFL because he looks really, really good. So I think penalties would be my number 1 concern. Number 2 is the play of the safeties. Straight up, I know Evan Williams led the team in tackles on Saturday. If you look holistically at the safety play Oregon has gotten this season, has not been good. Brian Addison was not there for personal reasons against Washington State. I have no idea if he's going to be back this week against Utah. I would like to see him there. I think he's a good football player and has done well for the Ducks. Steve Stevens is having the best season of his Oregon career by a lot. by a lot. I know that I think some Oregon fans that have a negative perception of him. I don't think, I mean, I was somebody who was low on him coming into the year. I didn't think he'd be playing as much as he is. He has earned that playing time though, and has graded well in coverage. I think has passed the eye test in many instances in coverage because he's not getting beat. He's not making a ton of impact plays. But when you look at the guys who are getting beat for big plays, a lot of the times it's a safety, right? Sometimes it's been Steve Stevens, not super often. But Tysheem Johnson this year has really struggled in coverage. Of all the safeties in the Pac-12, by the way, Tysheem actually grades on PFF as the 5th worst in the entire league. That matches up with what I think we've seen from him this year. He's had a couple of good moments, but ever since the Texas Tech game, I don't think he's made a lot of impact plays. I think he's been beaten coverage on several occasions. And if I'm an opposing offensive coordinator, I'm trying to find that matchup where Tysheem Johnson's trying to cover a wide receiver. I mean, just look at the Washington game. Jalen Polk, that first catch on the final Husky drive down the sideline, beat Tysheem Johnson initially, right? And I don't love that we're having a safety cover Jalen Polk, but it was 2-man, and Johnson was, just out there, and that's the way the coverage went and everything. But I think the safety play, there haven't been too many impact plays in the passing game. I think in the run game, all these guys have been really good. Evan Williams, like his brother, he's definitely faster than Bennett. He is a great tackler. He's a really good blitzer. He's made plays in the backfield. He's hit quarterbacks a couple times. But over the top, like I just don't see, compared to the other college football games I watch, a safety that has like the instincts of a Verone McKinley, of a John Boyette, or a Jarris Byrd back in the day, or the playmaking ability or athletic traits of a Javon Holland. Like it just isn't there. And I think that is kind of the weakest area of Oregon secondary. I think the corners have been really good. Jalil Florence, Kyrie Jackson, we know those dudes are studs. The backups who have been there, look, they've played like backups, but high-level ones. Triquez Bridges, remember, had that great stretch in the Washington game. Was blanketed on Rome Odunze all the time. Odunze made a couple catches. You know why? Because he's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. You look at Dante Manning, he's not a high-level corner, but he's rock solid. He is rock solid, and doesn't have the best ball skills in the world as a cornerback, but it puts himself in position and stays glued to wide receivers pretty darn well. Guys have to make contested catches. So I like what I've seen from the secondary. Nico Reed, I think, has done a solid job this year. Nothing special, but I think he's been a solid addition to that unit. But, if I asked you right now, playmaking safety over the course of Oregon's 7 games this season, in the passing game, not in the run game, not blitzing, but like over the top, I haven't seen it. Now, the good news compared to last season is that Oregon's not getting beat over the top, right? They gave up a bunch of long passes last year. Washington had some, and Colorado even had one, and Cal had a couple, and Washington State had a couple. Like that aspect of it has improved, but I just don't see a lot of playmaking, and I don't think there's a really elite cover guy in that group. I think there are solid ones, decent ones. I don't think they're elite ones. So I think that's an area that defenses or offenses that can throw the football a lot are going to try to exploit. And then Oregon has to be ready to counter, whether that's putting a corner on the field, maybe Triquez is the number 3 corner out there, or playing more Nico Reed. I don't know. I don't know what the coaching staff views as a solution to that. Maybe they don't see it as much of a problem. I'm just saying what I see. And I think the lack of impact plays from safeties is, a little disappointing with the players that they brought in. And maybe they are going to step it up in the second half of the season, like Triquez did at corner circa 2022. That would be really great. I think that's been a weakness. Last thing here, the quarterback pressure. Look, the numbers are great. I mean, 6 sacks of Cam Ward. It still kind of comes and goes a little bit. Like this is just all I could really come up with, because as I've talked about, this is a really complete team. This is a really complete, really good football team, and one that is capable of making the college football playoff. So I don't think there are a ton of glaring weaknesses. There is one some Oregon fans might point to. I do not agree with it, though. I do agree that LinkedIn Jobs is great, because these days every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for a small business. It can, and you want to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that is why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Go in there, create a free job post in minutes, which is super easy. Add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Small businesses rate LinkedIn jobs number one. That's numero uno in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. To post your job for free, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Needed a longer second segment sip there because I was out in the sun all day on the golf course, rocking this polo, which, by the way, shout out to Oregon Golf. This is the shirt that they wore in 2016 when they won the national championship. Solomon Raza would love to know that he's listening to or watching the show right now. Hit the 4-footer at Eugene Country Club. I remember watching that on TV. Gosh, it was so awesome. That's kind of around the time that I was really, really starting to get into golf. I was always very into it, but got into it that year. And that same year that Oregon won the national championship, I think it was 2016, my high school team, we won our state championship as well. So that was really, really fun. And no surprise, I put on the duck shirt and had a good day on the golf course. Two things go hand in hand. So also, if you want to be a Locked On Ducks insider, join the Locked On Ducks subtext community. Link in the description below. You get all sorts of perks. There's a free trial period, and then it is $5 a month. So let's get to what we do every Tuesday on the show. I'm just kidding. I didn't forget. I didn't tease something and then not bring it to you. I was just seeing if you're paying attention. So one thing that Oregon fans, I feel at least a segment of them would look at and say, hey, we need to be better at this, or this could be a weakness, is the red zone. I don't agree with this particular assessment. Would it be nice to score a touchdown every single time we got into the red zone? Yes. Yes, it would. Would it be nice to be 100% on fourth down? Yes, it would. And I know Oregon had a bad day on fourth down against Washington. Their numbers on fourth down this season are actually quite good. So it was not great that day, but that's football. Those are 50-50 coin flip plays that didn't happen to go Oregon's way, unfortunately. But the red zone touchdown percentage this year, not scoring percentage, but touchdown percentage, is 73%. If you go look at the best teams in college football, that's quite good. Oregon State is, a team that I was looking at some other numbers, and Georgia's in like the 70% range, and Utah doesn't have a great offense. They're in the 60% range, and Washington has almost the exact same percentage as Oregon in the red zone. If you are in the mid to high 70s with your touchdown percentage, when you get inside the 20-yard line, you are doing well. It's not going to be 100%. It just isn't. It's harder to play offense down there. It's harder to call an offense down there. So I don't believe, though I'm anticipating some comments about, well, the red zone, the play calling, numbers tell you otherwise. 73% is a number that I am happy with. And if it stays there the rest of the year, if it starts to come down, then I can say, okay, the red zone play calling clearly and execution has to get better. I don't think that's been a problem so far this year. Oregon's putting it in the end zone. About 3 out of every 4 trips, they go down inside the opponent's 20. They're going down inside the opponent's 20 a lot because they're averaging over 530 yards of offense a game. I think they're going to be just fine as the year goes on. No one's been able to stop them yet. Best defense of the year this Saturday on the road against Utah. Gosh, it's going to be a great battle. I'm excited already. And I've loved, by the way, many of you know, I live in the great state of Utah. It is a great state with great people and great fans. I love this football game. And it's the last time we're going to play Utah for God only knows how long, unless we see them in the Pac-12 championship game, which is possible. I love playing Utah because it's a big game since they've elevated, up closer to Oregon's level brand-wise nationally. And they're ranked top 15. They're the number 13 team in the country. Oregon's number 9. And their fans are awesome. Absolutely awesome. They are passionate. They are not blind. They are not homers. They are not annoying. Like I'm all in on Utah fans, having lived among them for over 2 years now. So that being said, I love doing this segment every Tuesday. Individual standouts beyond just the obvious from Saturday, right? Like Bucky, Irving, of course, that's an individual standout. Jordan James went over 100 yards. Bo Nix had another good game. Troy Franklin was quietly held to like 4 receptions for 70 yards. What a terrible day. How about the other guys that stood out? Let's start with the top of the list. We finally saw him in game 7. We've been waiting week after week after week, and Jestin Jacobs played. For those of you who are new here, I will explain. Linebacker transfer this offseason from Iowa, guy who had a good amount of hype coming into the season. Iowa was happy to have him. Strong defensive culture over there. Oregon gets him in the portal, and he's been battling an injury. I compared him to Justin Flo. Highly ranked recruit. Flo was a 5-star. Jacobs was a 4-star. Battled injuries, but in the glimpses that he played, looked really good. And what we saw from him on Saturday was quite good. He had a couple of impact plays. And I think that his speed and physicality, the physicality is what he brings to the table, but he's not sacrificing his speed. He ran down Cam Ward on a sideline scramble, gave him a pop, and then on the next play, 3rd and 2, fills in the run assignment and sticks the running back in the hole for no gain, brings up a 4th down. I think Washington State ended up converting it, but I think that Jacobs brings something to that room. Not necessarily that's been missing, because I think the linebacker play has been solid. It's just another guy who can do that. I think he and Jamal Hill are pretty similar in body type and play style and kind of what they're capable of. I didn't know what we were going to see from Jestin Jacobs. He recorded a sack. He had a really good coverage moment on a wheel route down the sideline. He's flying sideline to sideline. He's filling holes and making big hits. I think that's a good piece for Oregon's defense. I don't know about game changing. I don't know if I feel dramatically different about Oregon's defense. I felt pretty good before. I definitely feel, at least 2% better, which is my favorite kind of milk because it's the only one that's worth drinking, obviously. I feel 2% better about Oregon's defense with Jestin Jacobs being in there. So I think that's a good thing. Couple more guys to shout out here. Jackson Powers-Johnson and Josh Connerly. Josh Connerly's getting no love from PFF. I disagree. I think his pass blocking can improve. Bo Nix has faced a lot more pressure from his blind side than his front side, which is a credit to a Johnny Cornelius and also a testament to the fact that Connerly has to get better. Go look at every big run that Oregon created on Saturday against the Cougs. On more than half of them, Josh Connerly and JPJ, one or both of them, are just moving people out of the way. And there are really good players on that defensive line, particularly at the edge spots. Talked about him going into the game, Brandon Jackson and Ron Stone Jr. Josh Connerly moves some people. I mean, he was like a snowplow, just paving the way for pulling linemen or a pulling tight end and then a running back to go through. Jordan James' first run, for instance, Connerly moves a guy something to the effect of 5 yards out of the way. It was a Penei Sewell kind of block. And it was beautifully executed. He did the same thing on Bucky Irving's big run where he cut it back against the counter where the play was supposed to go. It was going to go right. He goes to the left. He cuts, and makes the guy look silly. Connerly is just sweeping him away. Just, excuse me, my running back needs to move here. I thought he had an awesome game. And then JPJ is, he levels dudes out in the open. He pancakes them at the line of scrimmage. You talk about, I hope JPJ comes back next year. I really do. That guy's really good. That guy's been really good since he set foot on Oregon's campus. You talk about someone who lines up with recruiting expectations, played as a true freshman, wasn't a starter, but played regularly, played even more in 2022, starter in 2023, and is just, I'm pretty sure he's going to be first team all conference, might be first team all American at the center position, first or second. I mean, he is playing at that sort of level. It's been so awesome to watch. You know what was awesome to watch? Patrick Herbert. Oh, man. Washington State just needs to avoid that sideline, that end zone, that sideline. Nothing good happens. Either a safety gets turned every which way, zigging and zagging back and forth, and there he goes. Shout out to Anthony Thomas back in 2011. But I think it's either that or I don't know which one. I mean, I don't know which one's more iconic is what I'm trying to get at. Is it the pancake block on the guy who stopped playing for some reason? Or is it the Anthony juking guy out of his shoes? I don't know. Both are fantastic. But Patrick Herbert has not just been a guy who makes one or two highlight plays. If you watch the game closely, he looks as healthy as he's ever been. He's physical. He is fast. He catches passes when we need him to, but doesn't require them and just goes out there and makes hustle plays. and just moves guys out of the way. He and T. Ferg both, I think, are awesome in the run blocking department. I think they are both fantastic, and Herbert showed that again on Saturday. They are excellent tight ends. And by the way, shout out to Kenyon Sadiq on Bo Nix's touchdown. Nifty design by Will Stein, by the way. Loved that concept there. And I like the heavy goal line set with an H-back split off the line of scrimmage at each end. But I think that Kenyon Sadiq threw an awesome block as well. He's kicking out the Washington State linebacker. I didn't look like a true freshman, but it is a true freshman. I think Sadiq, by the time it's all said and done, I think that could be an NFL guy too. Now he's got, plenty of room to grow, but his physical traits, high level. So one more individual standout that we just have to get to because, man, he had an awesome game. Absolutely fantastic. He was great against Washington as well. He really was. You might be great picking on Prize Picks, which is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You don't have to battle thousands of other players. You don't have to go against pros and sharks. You just pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Circle LeBron James, I guess. I don't know. But guess what? I love tacos. And I love Prize Picks too. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. Go check them out. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's PrizePicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, last standout here from Saturday's game, Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson was fantastic. I tell you, that fade route, brother to brother, as Jerry Allen called it on the radio, that was beautiful. First of all, great play design. Anticipating man coverage. You call a man beater. You know where the ball is supposed to go. Bo Nix, that was an NFL-level throw. That was an NFL-level throw, and Tez Johnson made an NFL-level catch. And, I mean, his explosiveness, his route running, his football IQ and awareness, his hands, that dude has been absolutely worth listening to our distinguished leader at quarterback over, who went to Dan Lanning, according to the story that ESPN reported on the broadcast, and said, I think this guy can help us. Dan Lanning agreed. Yeah, he helped us. On a day where Shi Smith-Wade was, putting the clamps, quote unquote, on Troy Franklin for only 4 catches for 70 yards. By the way, I love that we're taking deep shots to him. Late in the game against Washington, 3rd and 4 against Washington State, love letting him go up and make a play. But when he is not having, a 7-catch, 140-yard, 2-touchdown effort, having Tez Johnson there as a clear number 2, I think he's separated himself as the number 2 option for Bo Nix. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, his route running is exactly as PFF described. His catch radius is good for a little guy. His hands are great, and he's just got big-time speed, and you feel like he's always just 1 or 2 blocks away from breaking it. So those are my individual standouts. Who'd you think deserved an individual standout? I got 3 more shows this week, and then the reaction one on Saturday. By then, we'll be talking about Utah, of course. But let me know in the comments, YouTube or on Twitter, who deserves a shout-out in your view. Let's get further into the mailbag. This question from Balin. Hey, Spence, pod question. Do you think Camden Lewis's miscues are something we should be worried about yet? Obviously, kicking is an incredibly difficult job. Fact check, true. But that's 2 weeks in a row he's now had issues kicking. He's actually missed a field goal in 3 straight. I hesitate to call it regression yet, but it's showing signs, and I worry it might cost us a big game. Thoughts? I hate to break it to you. It was not the only reason that Oregon didn't beat the Huskies. It was certainly a missed opportunity on Camden's part. He's well aware of that. Doesn't need me to tell him. I, however, am worried about it. I absolutely am. And it's not something I thought would be a concern this season because of how he performed last year. He was 2nd team All Pac-12. I think he's preseason honorable mention or 2nd team. Like he has been really solid and reliable. And now when he steps up, like it got to the point last year where I expected him to make the kick if it was beyond, or if it was, even if is what I should say, even if it was beyond 35 yards. And, 35 and in, that should be borderline automatic. But 35 to 45 is kind of that if he ranged for a kicker, I had so much confidence in Camden last year. And his career arc has been outstanding, as if written by properly motivated writers. And by that, I mean sometimes character arcs just don't quite satisfy. Camden's really has. And I think that with the struggles he has had and the miss at Washington, making a game-winning kick this year, that would wipe away all the demons. I don't have confidence in him right now. I want him to put it back in us. But currently, like, I know he made the 27-yarder against Washington State. Great. He doesn't have the yips, okay? That's not the problem. But if Oregon has a 4th and 7 at the 29-yard line, yeah, the analytics don't say to go for that. And I don't think we as fans want to have to go for it. I don't want Oregon's offense to be put in that situation where they can't rely on Camden Lewis, right? And Dan Lanning, I'm pretty sure, has been consistent about the fact that he is still confident in Camden Lewis, and that's still their kicker, and he should be. He absolutely should be. On a personal level, does it concern me that we don't have that in our back pocket? Yes, because when you've already missed one crucial kick in the season, and now it's materialized in a way where he's missed kicks in 3 straight games, I mean, and frankly, that should maybe be the number 3 weakness on this Oregon team is, I think the special teams have been much, much better this year. They're not outstanding, but they have been pretty good for the most part. But the fact that if you told me right now, would you rather go for it on 4th and 5 or kick a 37-yard field goal for the win? I would say go for it on 4th and 5 in a tie game. I don't love that, but that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it until I get evidence to the contrary. So I think it is completely fair to be concerned about it. And hopefully Oregon doesn't get put in that spot. Do not love our chances right now because it's a psychological thing. You missed that kick against Washington, gets in your head. He came out 45-yarder against Washington State, plenty of leg. He doesn't have a leg problem. It's not like he doesn't have the leg strength. It's right here on that little 1-foot piece of real estate between the ears. Another thing I saw that I just want to put to bed real quick. Scott Frost was at the Oregon game. Don't worry about it. It's not. Relax. This question from Greg. Caught up on the weekend reaction shows. My question is, now that USC quarterback has had 2 subpar games in a row, to me looks like 3 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 lead the pack in the nation. Has Nick's done enough to pull out in front of the other 2 and others across the nation, or another candidate is coming on strong, maybe Bucky? So I think this question is about little bit jumbled. I love answering your guys' questions. Maybe make them like just slightly clear, but I think this is about the Heisman Trophy discussion. And Penix is still going to be the favorite because he's the best player who puts up gaudy numbers for the most part on a 7-0 football team. Bo Nix can still win the Heisman this year. Absolutely. He's got name brand recognition. He's got a good enough story to tell. He just has to have a good enough team. He's having a good enough season. He's having a good enough season to at least be a finalist if Oregon gets there. I don't think that Bucky Irving, because of the carry share with Whittington and Jordan James, which I like for the offense, by the way, I very much think that is a net positive for the Ducks. I don't think Bucky would be able to get into the Heisman Trophy discussion. Bo Nix can. I won't say that he's separated from the other 2, being Penix and Caleb Williams. Like, don't be too much a prisoner of the moment. Williams has had 2 bad games in a row. Let's see what he does against Cal. If it's a third, I mean, he's out of the Heisman Trophy running regardless because he won it last year, and you'd have to do something insane in order to win it twice in a row, which has only been done one other time. And I'd say that for, Penix, the numbers favor him, and so too does his team's record. So it's an uphill battle, but I would love for Bo Nix to win the Heisman. It would be awesome. It would be absolutely awesome. Is it a big concern of mine? Not really. I care about team success the most. I did really want Marcus to win because it's Marcus. But I don't think Bo needs that to validate his career at Oregon. I think a college football playoff appearance, or at least a Pac-12 championship, would do just that. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.